Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
Wheat School comes to you today from the C&M Seeds Industry Day, and I'm joined now by Dr. Lewis Lukens from the University of Guelph. Sir, thank you for taking the time and stopping by.
Well, thanks very much. It's a great event and a beautiful day.
It sure is. Hey, I want to talk about your presentation today. You talked about new techniques in wheat genetics, and specifically, CRISPR, Cas9, and how it compares to genomic selection. Let's talk about CRISPR. Let's start there. How do you explain that technology for growers?
Sure. Well, CRISPR is a very exciting new technology that has really exploded in the last couple of years. And the technology modifies the plant genome to create new traits. What's so special about the technology is that it works with great precision, so it only changes those DNA sequences that one targets in the plant genome.
Now, you described it as basically a breeding technique that produces a non-GMO product. Can you explain that a little bit for us?
That's right. So the technique, it again targets specific genomic regions. For example, if there's a gene that produces a protein and that protein has a trait that you don't like, then you can eliminate the function of that gene precisely using this technology. So it uses very classical. The output is a classical output. So breeders for centuries have been using mutagenesis, so mutation breeding, and natural selection to improve plant varieties.
Right. So I guess the question always is, hey, is it a GMO? But you're saying basically it's a process, but the output is non-GMO.
The output is non-GMO, exactly.
Awesome. Hey, let's talk about what it's going to bring to breeding. And I guess the first question we always want to know is about how fast may it impact bringing varieties to market. What role may it play there?
It can act quite quickly because it's so targeted that, for example, if one wants to create a disease resistance gene, you can use an existing cultivar and modify a specific gene within that cultivar, and that modification would be in the terms of a year or two, and so really very fast relative to breeding processes, to the development of a new variety using conventional breeding.
So I guess when you're trying to improve a variety, you're looking at yield, quality, disease resistance. Does CRISPR have a bigger impact in any one of those categories?
Yes. For CRISPR to be effective, one needs to know the exact DNA change that will cause the trait of interest. And for many traits, yield is one of them, and fusarium resistance is another. The genetic base is quite complex, so there are many DNA changes that cause variation for these traits, and if you have all those changes, we don't know what to target. So it works much better for simple genetic traits, and those would include many disease resistance genes. Dwarfism is another, where we know the exact nucleotides that need to be changed to create a trait.
So if you're going to focus on yield improvements, for example, you may more use genetic selection, genomic selection.
That's right. Yeah. So for complex traits that are, we call them polygenic. So they're, if one has a high yielding variety and a low yielding variety, there are often hundreds, perhaps thousands of genes that contribute to that difference, and those genes, they're too many to be targeted individually by this CRISPR-Cas9 technology. And in those cases, we use genomic information across the genome to select for varieties that have the positive alleles of these many genes.
Now, you made the point in your presentation that wheat actually stands to benefit the most when you compare it to corn and soybeans from CRISPR technology. Can you explain that?
Sure. A major capacity of the technology is to target individual genes for modification, and you can target. Wheat has a complex genome, and there are usually 3 copies of each gene. This technology will change all 3 of those copies at one time. And other species usually have 1 copy, and so it's easier to change 1 copy in existing methods than 3 copies, but with CRISPR-Cas9, it'll change all 3.
Final question for you is, I guess, how embedded is the process, the technology now into, variety development programs? And I guess the next question is regulation. When might we get to that process or that point where where breeders like yourself can actively use the technology?
Right now, the technology is, I'd say, it's not yet embedded within the development pipeline, but that will of course happen quite quickly. In terms of the regulation, because the breeding technology creates a non-GMO product, my understanding is that regulators are considering it as a breeding technology, much like the breeding technologies that we already have, such as using natural variation within a species or using mutagenesis to create variation.
Great stuff, Doctor. Hey, thanks for stopping by. We'll have you back on the Wheat School in the weeks ahead.
Okay, thanks very much.